Alright, hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about the idea that on this self-love path, we are not looking for a before and after moment. We're not looking for the thing that's going to take us from our suffering into our pleasure, the healing modality, the answer, the spiritual technique, the transformation weekend, the healing session. We're understanding that this path is a path of progress and steps and one step forward and two steps back and all of this. And we're understanding that radical transformation is absolutely possible and probable on this path, okay? So my main thing before we even get started is if you're coming to this path, this self-love path, because you're in pain and because you have things in your life that you really want to change, and you have coping mechanisms, and you have self-sabotage, and you have health issues, and all of this stuff, relationship issues, codependencies, all of this, that you know you want to change. You know you don't want to be dealing with this stuff for the whole rest of your life. You know that you want to find a peace and a kind of like an after state where these things aren't your everyday reality anymore. And I want to say that absolutely, okay, on this self-love path, it is absolutely possible and likely that as we process and as we do this work and as we show up for ourselves and learn to love ourselves and learn to support ourselves and all of these things, that we will eventually look back and be like, whoa, okay, like I don't have that stuff anymore. My life is actually radically different. I have taken myself from a place where I kind of thought I was never going to heal and I was never going to transform, and I was feeling terrible, and I don't have that anymore, and I'm not there anymore, okay? And so before we even get started, my point of this video is not to say if you do your self-love work, you're going to have your stuff for the rest of your life and nothing is ever going to change and there's no before and after, and you just have to learn to love who and what you are right now and accept your pain and it just is what it is forever. That's not what I'm saying, okay? On this path, there will be radical transformation, and I promise you that. But my main point is that with this radical transformation and what change actually looks like from a true self-growth place is often something that we don't recognize as being what the growth path looks like. So we don't see it, and then we don't get on it because we're looking for something else and we're getting distracted by a path that doesn't exist, and therefore we're not seeing the path that does exist, okay? So what do I mean by that? Most of us, because of the world we live in, because of the way that we're conditioned, because of the way that media and markets work right now, we're all being sold this idea of, like I say, a thing that radically transforms our lives, right? That we're going to find the diet, and then our bodies are fixed forever. We're going to find the way to deal with nervous system trauma, the tool, the therapy, and then we're not going to be having nervous system problems anymore. We're going to be just a different person now, right? We're going to find the relationship secret that completely eradicates all of our codependency and all of our confusion. We're going to find our true authentic self, yes? And then just authentic communication and relating will be perfectly easy, and finding your perfect job will be easy, and you'll only attract people into your life that love you and understand you and support you, and you'll never have challenge in that way again, and you'll know what to do and all of these things. We're being sold that there's a thing that can take us from where we are to where we want to go, and we're constantly looking for that, right? And we're feeling like if what we're trying isn't immediately giving us these results, if what we're doing isn't giving us that 30-day before and after picture, if what we're doing isn't completely fixing the problem, that it must not be right. or we're not doing it right, or we need some other tool, or something is missing, and we abandon it and we let it go and we think, okay, that didn't work, or that wasn't right, or I'm failing at this, or whatever. And kind of like on the flip side, like I say, with the personal growth and self-help, we're told, okay, this is the tool, this is the thing, this is the path, it's your mindset, it's your manifestation, it's your energy, it's your vibration, this is the diet, this is the tool, this is the technique, and if you're doing it right, it will completely fix your life. And therefore, if it isn't fixing your life, it's not that the tool doesn't work, or it's not that the tool is incomplete, it's not that the healing modality isn't everything, it's not that the self-improvement thing isn't the thing, it's that you're doing it wrong. You're not doing it hard enough, you're not trying hard enough, you're not implementing it enough. And if you're failing, and if you're falling off the wagon, and if you're not doing it, you suck. And you should be the one to just fix yourself and get back on the path, and it's supposed to work. So if it's not working for you, it's because you're failing. And so, like I say, we're indoctrinated and inundated with this kind of messaging all day long. And then because this is the kind of thing that sells, because these are the kind of messages that we want to hear, because of course we're suffering, we don't like suffering, we want to believe that there's a quick fix, we want to believe that there's a simple thing, okay, because that's the other thing. When we're in pain, when we're overwhelmed, and all of us having grown up, not being given the tools to figure out how to problem solve, not being given the tools, and usually most of us didn't have caregivers, didn't have people around us that we saw, yes, that we witnessed problem solving, that we saw had issues that they worked out over time, that we saw when they were facing challenges, they went into problem solving mode. They went into, okay, what's going on here, and how can I figure something out, and how can I learn something, and how can I expand? We didn't see that, right? We saw our caregivers, we saw all the other adults in our lives surrender to their stuff. We saw them loop in their stuff and like never get anywhere and never get any better. We saw them try the thing over and over and over again and never get anywhere. And so we've never witnessed, usually, what it actually looks like to be on a growth path. We witnessed our friends and family all just loop in their stuff for their entire lives, right? And I think we all kind of have this subconscious fear that, like, if it's not simple, and if the answer isn't this thing that I can understand from my vantage point right now, that there isn't an answer. And like I say, when we're in pain and when we're overwhelmed and when we're scared and when we've had a problem that we've had for a while, to think a lot of the time that this is just going to be an incremental thing that I figure out a whole bunch of mini steps and it's going to be this whole big long journey before I'm like at my after place. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to think that. We don't want to feel that, because that can just feel like, okay, but I'm not going to feel better until I'm at my after. And if you're telling me my after is going to be all these things I have to figure out, when I don't feel like I can figure anything out, when I don't feel like, right, when I feel like I've tried to figure things out and I've tried to do different things and I've tried all of this stuff and none of it's worked and I haven't made any progress and I'm not getting there. We don't trust ourselves to be able to figure things out. We've never seen anyone else figure things out. And like I say, it can feel like we're hearing, we're not going to feel better until we're done and we're healed. And if you're telling me it's going to be all these little steps, that's like forever from now. If you're telling me I'm not going to feel better for 10 or 15 years, I'm not even going to listen to that, right? Because I want to hear the thing that's going to make it better now. I want to hear the thing that I can understand from my vantage point that I have right now. What's going to work so that I don't have to feel pain anymore. And so, like, that makes perfect sense, and that's what sells, because of course that's what we want to hear. And then we have a lot of people who are willing to delude themselves, right? Either delude themselves or who are willing to lie to us about their progress, about their journey. And I've talked about this a lot with spiritual growth and spirituality gurus especially. They're constantly coming to us with their, I was struggling with this anxiety or this depression or this weight issue or this, I couldn't find my purpose or I was whatever. And then I found this tool and it transformed my whole life. And now come join my 30-day program and you can pay $444.44 and I will teach you my technique and then you will be delivered from anxiety or depression or whatever forever. And then they do that and then they sell that for a little while and then they kind of go away and go a little bit dark. And then they come back and they're like, I was dealing with this thing, I was dealing with my anxiety, I was dealing with my depression, I was dealing with, and it's the same issue that they had last time. Okay, this is always how it works, because that was the thing that's relatable to their audience. So they know their audience. So they come back with the same anxiety that they had last time, work issue they had last time, or they like pivot to some slightly different thing to try to get to a different audience. They go to the conscious relationship coach all of a sudden, or the money coach all of a sudden, or the health coach all of a sudden, but it's all still dealing with the same stuff. And then I have my new 30-day program. Don't worry, I was dealing with the thing. And now for $1,111, you can join my coaching. And then you'll fix it. And all this stuff. And then they go dark for a while. And then they come back with the whole new. I was struggling with the same thing you were struggling with. And no one's stepping back and being like, okay, but like literally 4 products ago, you told me you had solved this problem. And that this was the thing that would solve all of my problems, right? Because usually when they're selling us the key to our anxiety or the key to our health issue or the key to our work issue, they're not saying, and this will just solve this one area of your life. They're saying, and then when you solve this, your life will be perfect, right? When you find that right relationship, it'll be because you aligned your chakras so perfectly and now you have the right job and your body is healed and you've healed all your trauma and all of these things too, right? Like they're not just selling us a thing. They're selling us a thing that will be the thing that fixes your entire life. And they're selling it to you over and over and over again. And then they have people who are willing to give their testimonials and their before and afters and their all of this stuff. And I think part of that is because we are humans who love approval from one another and we love community, and there's something about doing things together and getting positive reinforcement that makes us feel and believe like we're getting the results that are being promised. So I don't think that all of these people who give their transformation stories are lying. I think there's absolutely something to be said for progress that was actually made. There's something to be said for, like I say, the fact that we're in a community and we're getting all this positive feedback and we're in that nervous system stimulation. We really believe this thing is going to work because we really believe in the teacher and we really believe in all the people around us who are doing all the thing, and it's all the rah 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 and the energy. Like this is why the like Tony Robbins retreats and all these things happen in such a specific way, where you're in this crowd and in this group, and that group momentum is there to kind of override any doubts you might be having, or override any feelings that you might want to pull back, or override any evidence that what is being presented isn't going to work, because you're swept up in the energy of the group. And that's a big thing. So people give these testimonials, and like I say, it's not always just the teacher who's promoting these things. It's often the people who are in their group who are promoting these things, because they are also believing they're having these experiences, and yet they're going to be the same people who are in the next group and in the next group and the next group because it didn't work. And they're thinking, well, I must just not have done it right, or I need to level up, I need to do the next thing, I need to whatever. And so, again, this is what we're being sold. This is what we're being told. And so there's kind of this like snake eating its own tail, that it's like, we don't want to hear anything else. We don't want to hear a different message. So that stuff doesn't get into our algorithm. That stuff doesn't sell. That stuff doesn't become popular. Because, like I say, it's not what we want to hear. And then at the same time, what we want to hear is these things are so amplified, and these things are so celebrated, and these things are become so popular and gain so much momentum that it becomes the only thing we hear and the only thing we see. And our entire feeds are filled with it. And so any other message is being drowned out because these other messages are just so heavily, because of the algorithm, right? They're just so heavily inflated. And normal media does this too. The media doesn't sell to us things that work. That the media isn't looking to give what actually serves, right? The media is looking to make money. Mainstream media, alternative media, any kind of media you're looking at, it doesn't matter how woke the media is or how asleep the media is in your view of who is woke and who is asleep. They're all working for the same thing, which is money, right? They're looking for eyeballs. And what sells is what's flashy, what's quick, because we're all so overwhelmed. None of us know how to problem solve. We all feel like we need the answer that's going to rescue us. And so that's what's marketed. That's what's pushed forward, right? We know this. The diet industry has a new hot thing every 3 months. The fashion industry has a new hot thing every 2 months. There's like micro seasons apparently where it's like every week the fashion changes. And the point is they can't sell you a thing that works. And they can't sell you a thing that here's what it is and now you don't have to buy any more things. And they can't sell you a thing that's just long term, because that wouldn't make money. That would be terrible for capitalism, right? Which is the system we're all working under. Because none of us want to do that, number one. And again, if there's only one thing to sell, if there's only one idea, and then that's it, it's just that over and over and over again, and there isn't like a level up, and there isn't an upgrade, and there isn't a whatever, it's just you do this now, we're out of business, right? The media can't sustain that. Creators can't sustain that. That doesn't work with our system. And so while there's like, okay, I can support you through it, I can be here with you, we can do one-on-one coaching, there's kind of like several different ways of doing like a real growth path, it's really not suited for our capitalist structure, which demands that we have a new thing all the time. And it doesn't work for the way that our brains have been programmed to look for a solution, which is it's supposed to work right now. And it's supposed to fix everything right now. And if it doesn't, either I did it wrong and I have to level up or buy again or go to the retreat again or whatever, or I need the next thing because this thing didn't work. So what I'm saying is a lot of us are looking for a growth path that doesn't exist. And then we're not getting the results that we want. We're not getting the radical transformation that we want. We're not seeing the changes we want to see. And then we keep looking for the changes we want to happen the way we expect them to happen. And therefore we're missing the actual path and the way they're actually going to happen. Okay? So what I'm saying is, on this self-love path, where we're not constantly doing something new, we're not constantly buying the next program, we're not constantly having to change to something totally different. When we're on this path of these foundations of practicing compassion for yourself and practicing curiosity, yes, we're going to add tools to our toolbox. There are going to be things that we are going to go through, right? Phases on our journey where this kind of nervous system reprogramming work is really influential and really important and really impactful for where we are. And then there's going to be times when we kind of have outgrown that and we don't need that anymore. And now we're focusing on some other area of our life. And maybe we're changing the way that we eat, and we're really discovering how coming at that from a self-love place of compassion and curiosity rather than trying to do the diet right and doing all these things, we find answers to our bodies that we didn't see before. And we find practitioners that really work for us and take us to the next step and all these things. But again, we're understanding now that we're not looking for the solution to all of our problems or even the solution to a single problem. We're now understanding that it's all just going to be steps that build on itself. we're taking these foundations, and these are the things that we do now, forever. This is just our way of being. And as we practice, and as we get these things to be like our new way of life, like that's what we kind of have to think of it as, we're going to, of course, like I say, we're going to go to therapy sometimes. We're going to read this book and it's going to be really powerful. We're going to start practicing this tool and it's going to be really, really good for us. And there's going to be like new things that come along that add to our toolbox. But nothing is going to be the thing that changes your life. Nothing is going to be the thing. Like you will go and 10 years from now, you will look back at where you are today and you will be like, holy shit, I'm a completely different person. But you're not going to be able to say, and this was the moment where I changed. Right? That was the thing that did it. That was the one thing that from that moment forward, my life was different. Rather, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, okay, I did a whole bunch of little things, and all of them have added up to this radical transformation. But there wasn't a thing. There wasn't a step that took me from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. And my other kind of favorite metaphor for this is like expecting that we're going to find an exercise that takes us from not fit to fit. Right? Like we're looking for the weightlifting thing that takes us from not being strong to being strong. What's the technique that makes it so that we go from not being able to lift any weight to lifting 100 pounds? And we have to understand that like it doesn't matter how much technique you get. There are going to be 4,000 different techniques for how to lift that 100 pounds over your head. There are going to be lots of different ways that are right for how you can lift that weight over your head. But the thing that's going to get you from not being able to lift the weight to lift the weight is not a perfect technique, is not the thing. It's going to be, okay, you have to change your nutrition to be able to lift muscle. You're going to have to go to the gym and you're going to have to learn how to lift 5 pounds. And then you're going to have to learn how to lift 10 pounds and then 20 pounds. And you're going to incrementally over time build muscle so that eventually, several months down the road, when you've dealt with your nutrition, and then, right, you had to deal with your mindset to become someone who can be committed to doing something like this. And there were going to be times when you got injured and you got distracted and things were happening in your life and that you had to learn how to navigate that. And then you had to learn how to navigate, maybe you move or something happens and then you have to find a new gym and you have to find a new community and then there's drama within the community and all of these things are going to happen. And so on the journey from I can't lift any weight to I can lift 100 pounds over my head, you will have taken a million different steps. But the main thing is you will have learned the discipline of you just pick a technique and then you do that over and 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 over again. Because again, the person at the gym who's lifting 5 pounds and the person at the gym who's lifting 100 pounds are doing the same movement. They're doing the same technique. Yeah, the technique, the answer, the tool that the 100-pound person is using isn't different than the tool that the 5-pound person is using. The thing that's different between them is repetition, right? The thing that made the person who can lift 100 pounds, the person who can lift 100 pounds, and the person who can only lift 5 pounds, the person who can only lift 5 pounds is time and repetition and doing the same thing over and over and over again. This person has become radically transformed slowly, incrementally over time, just by continuing to show up and doing the thing over and over and over again. And that's really what this path looks like. When we can allow ourselves to release the idea that there is a thing that's going to fix our entire lives, and when we can understand that it is going to just be taking these foundations and doing them over and over and over again, and then applying them to all the different things that come into our awareness as we grow, we will understand that this is what the transformation path looks like. Okay, second thing. The person you want to become knows 100 million things more than you know right now. They are aware of a whole bunch of different things that you're not aware of right now. They have experiences you don't have. They have been through things you have not been through. They have learned things that you haven't learned. And so to try to say, like, what is the thing that's going to take me from where I am right now to this person that I want to be? We need to, again, surrender that, because this person, the you that's on the other side, that doesn't have the coping mechanism anymore, that has radically transformed, got there because, again, they went through a whole bunch of different experiences, and all of those experiences added a little bit to them, added to their awareness, added to their understanding, so that eventually they got here. So, like, again, when I talk about my journey, right? If someone had come to me 15 years ago and said, okay, here's your after 15 years in the future me right now, and here's all the things she's doing, so just go and do all that stuff. Here's how she eats, here's how she communicates, here's how she works, here's how she moves her body, here's how she relates to other people, here are all of her practices, you go do that now. 15 years ago me would never have been able to do any of that stuff. She wouldn't have even understood what you were saying, right? Like, there would have been things that I'm like, this is super important, do this. And she would have been like, no, that's not it. That doesn't have anything to do with what I care about. That's not anything. Like, it would have gone completely over her head, my head. And that's kind of like another big thing. And then the other thing too is, I have had times on my path where I really was like, okay, this thing is the next thing. This thing is the tool. This is the thing I have to do. And I couldn't get myself to do it. I couldn't get myself to stick with it. I kept falling off. I kept not being able to. I kept not having the capacity to stick with it. Sounds good. And the reason for that is because it was the right thing eventually. I got to a place eventually where that tool I was so sure of that was going to help me did. But I wasn't ready to implement it. I wasn't strong enough. I didn't have the requisite understanding and the requisite information to be able to apply that thing yet, because I still hadn't gone through a whole bunch of things that I needed to go through before I could get to the place where I was strong enough, or at a place where that tool was applicable to me. So that's the other thing, another big thing that we have to understand, is that, again, you are not going to discover a thing that's going to change your life. You're going to discover multiple things over time as you grow that all are going to add to you and make you more complex and understand more. So the main thing that I'm saying is that the you that exists right now doesn't understand all of the things that the you on the other side does. Hasn't had all the experiences you're going to need to have to be able to understand all the tools that are going to support you into becoming this person yet. So we have to kind of let go of, like, what would I be doing if I was at my dream state? How would I be in that dream right? Like what everyone tells us to do, visualize your dream state and act like that person. But you're not that person. You haven't taken that journey yet. That person has been through a whole bunch of things you haven't been through yet. So that's great. Have that vision, hold that vibration, whatever you want to do. And then say, what is the closest thing to that I can actually do in my present moment? That's always what we want to do. We let go, because no, you're not going to fake it till you make it. Oh, my phone's kind of lagging here. Hope that's okay. If you're on Instagram, I'm sorry. You're not going to fake it till you make it. You're not going to act like that person and then become that person. You're going to have the vision for that person, and then you're going to let that go. And you're going to focus on your next step, your thing that's right in front of you, the next part of your journey. Just, this is the next thing that feels resonant for me. Because again, when we start to move from true compassion for ourselves and true curiosity, right, when we're learning how to regulate our nervous systems so that we're not trying to force ourselves forward, we're not looking for the thing that's going to rescue us because we're in so much pain we feel like we need the answer right now. When we can start to say, okay, no, it's not ever going to be like that. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to have radical transformation. And that doesn't mean that I can't feel better on the path. So that's point 3 I'm going to get to in a second. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, again, in order to make the progress we want to make, we need to understand that the way we're going to get there is not by trying to pretend we're already there. It's not by trying to force something that's not working. Not by trying to force some tool or some understanding or some modality or any of these things. It's by saying, okay, where am I really right actually now? How am I feeling right now? What is my current understanding level? What are the tools that are practically available to me where I actually am right now? And how can I work with that? What is the next best feeling thing from where I am right now? The next best feeling thing from where I am right now. The next most reachable thing from where I am right now. So I was just talking about this to my mystery school people, that I gave them a technique for learning how to consciously communicate. So to work through codependencies we have in our relationships, and talking about how we identify our own needs and how we can learn to communicate them without demanding them or waiting for other people to empath us, and all of these things, and how we can start to draw boundaries, and how we can start to realize that we're not responsible for other people, and our relationship with our adult people is not the relationship with our caregivers, and seeing that we can be interdependent, not independent or dependent, and all of these things. And then I said, if you're at a place where even trying to do these tools, like trying to figure out what you would want and trying to ask for what you would want in a relationship and all that stuff is way too overwhelming, is way too scary, is like, I can't, like, I'm totally codependent, and to ask, like, to risk being rejected, to risk having someone be mad at me, to risk all that stuff, I go white noise, I can't do it. We honor that. We say, okay, that's not the step for you then. These steps are and really on the self-love path, what I really like to say is, we forget about them. Maybe you will never get there. We stop expecting ourselves to be able to do these things and say, like, I'm not good enough, and I'm not healing, and I'm not doing the path right if I can't do these steps that have become here in my awareness, right? And a lot of us think, well, I'm going to have to do it anyways. I'm going to have to do it at some point, so I may as well just push myself. I may as well get myself there right now. And my answer is no. Like, that, our nervous systems are never going to work that way. And we can't force ourselves into growth that we're not ready for. And what I said in, like, especially the codependency, just in that context, sometimes that inner child that got so convinced that it was going to die when love went away, that inner child that like, depending on how traumatized we were, right? Like, if we were in a household where the rules just constantly changed, and we were rejected for literally almost everything that we were, and we experienced maybe not getting our needs met, like genuinely not getting our needs met, or the constant threat of not getting our needs met through being rejected, and we really learned that it was something wrong with us, like, especially if our caregivers told us that stuff. Like, some of us, way worse than others, had caregivers who said, you are the reason I'm upset. You are the reason. If you were just different, and we learned so, like, we got so into blaming ourselves. We learned so hardcore that it was our fault that everyone was the way that they were, and that it was our job to be the perfect thing, and if we could have just been the perfect thing, we would be loved, and if we had been loved, we would be prevented, and then we would have found those relationships in our adulthood, and we were probably like very codependent and have not been our real selves for a very long time. And the trauma of that is so deep that we're not ready to take the step of exerting ourselves in our relationship. We're not ready to take that step of putting up a boundary or risking losing somebody. We still need to be in the place of just validating that all that stuff happened and that it wasn't our fault. Like, we're not going to be able to make progress until we really are just sit with that child that still blames themselves, right? Because a lot of us are codependent adults and we're blaming ourselves for being codependent. And it's like, you didn't choose to be codependent. You didn't just wake up and decide one day you were going to not have boundaries and live for approval and totally bury yourself and become anxious and depressed and completely lose who you were because you just wanted to. You got traumatized. And this is not your fault. And you're now having to clean up a mess you didn't make because your nervous system got so traumatized by that yes, now you're an adult and objectively it is true. You could be rejected and be okay, and you can problem solve and you have agency and all that stuff. But your nervous system isn't caught up to that. And so to ask yourself to do these things when your nervous system still feels like you're a 3-year-old who is going to die if you get rejected and still feels like it's your fault, you're not at that step yet. You're not at ask for what you want. You're at, okay, you just need to validate that that was really shitty and that shouldn't have happened to you and that it wasn't your fault. You need to grieve the loss of that childhood you never got. You got to be mad at your caregivers. Like, that's the phase you're in. And we have to let go of this, well, I'm going to have to do this step anyway, so I may as well just do it. Because that's like the grade 1 student saying, well, I'm going to have to do grade 12 calculus at some point anyway, so I may as well just do it now. And it's like, okay, yeah, but if you do the grades incrementally, by the time you get to grade 12 calculus, you'll be prepared to do it. You'll be ready. You'll have the requisite tools. You will have the requisite information. You will be set up for success in that step. Whereas if we just give it to you in grade 1, you're set up to fail because you weren't given all of the steps in between grade 1 and grade 12 to be able to successfully complete grade 12. So expecting you to be able to do a step you're not ready for is literally like saying, well, we're not going to give the grade 1 student any of the information from grade 2 to grade 11. And we're just going to say, figure out grade 12. It's like they're not going to be able to. You see, they weren't given the foundations. That's not fair. And we have to think of ourselves exactly like this. That when we just take the step that's in front of us, when we stop trying to force ourselves, okay, so we let go of the idea that there's a thing that's going to fix our lives. We let go of a tool. We let go of the perfect, this is the answer and I will never need anything else. And we understand, okay, I have my foundations of compassion for myself and curiosity. And that's my foundation. And then everything that's going to, this is the way that I live my life now. Okay, so compassion and curiosity isn't the answer. It's how we're going to find all the answers. Okay, it's the tool for how we're going to find the answers. Does this make sense? Compassion and curiosity, yeah, is the fundamental technique for how we lift weights. That's every person who lifts weights does the same movement. If we're trying to bicep curl 100 pounds, nobody's doing a bicep curl any differently than this. Okay, that's the foundational technique. That's self-love, compassion and curiosity, this movement. We all got it, good. That is not the thing that makes it so you can lift 100 pounds. Right? Now, from here, like I say, you're going to start with 5 pounds. You're going to start with working with your nutrition. You're going to learn discipline. You're going to learn showing up over and over and over again. You're going to learn maybe different ways of gripping the weight. You're going to learn what kind of shoes you need to wear that work for you. You're going to go through periods where you lack motivation and you can't get to the gym and you lose progress. And then you're going to go through periods where there's drama at the gym and you have to work through all these, you're going to go through a whole bunch of different things. And all along that way, you're going to be lifting, and then you're going to be like, oh, I can lift 10 pounds now. Cool. And then you're going to be focusing on something else, because now you're becoming more aware, you're becoming more educated, you're becoming more complex. So you learn something about nutrition that wasn't even on your radar before. And then now you can lift 15 pounds. And then you learn something about stance that you didn't know before, that wasn't even on your radar before, because now you're more advanced and you're more complex and you can see more things. And that changed things for you. And now you can lift 20 pounds. And you keep going, and you keep making all these little changes, and you keep feeling better and stronger as you go. And then by the time you get to 100 pounds, your diet is totally different. The way you relate to people in the gym is totally different. Maybe you're at a totally different gym. The style of weights that you're using is different. You've learned lots of different other kind of bicep curl techniques. Your clothes are different. You're a completely different person. And like I said, if we had just taken the you that was at the beginning and said, okay, well, here's the nutrition, here's the clothes, here's the gym, here's the people, would you have been able to just, on day one, implement all that stuff and lift 100 pounds? Nope. Because you still hadn't gone through the requisite training. The 5 pounds, the 10 pounds, the 15 pounds, the 20 pounds, the 30 pounds, the 40 pounds. You would have been feeling completely different every time you up-leveled in your understanding, every time you up-leveled in your awareness. And yet, you were doing the same technique over and over and over again, the same fundamental, foundational tool of this movement, just over and over and over again. And all these other things that added to it were important, and they came one step on top of another, building on themselves, as your awareness increased and you became more aware and you became more complex, right? Like when we look at people who are experts in their field, they can't just dump all their information on you and then you are where they are. The reason they are where they are is because they incrementally figured all these things out and incrementally lived them out, and it made them more complex, and it made them more aware, and it made them more capable of adding the next complexity, and then adding the next complexity, and then adding the next complexity. Again, you can't just give the grade 12 curriculum to a grade 1 student and explain it to them perfectly and then have them understand it and be able to do all of it. They don't have the requisite information. So this is what our path is really like. You're going to take your foundations, and you're going to become the kind of person that this is how you live your life now. You're not expecting it to be a thing you do for a while and then it radically transforms your life and then you don't have to do it anymore. This is your new way of being. Compassion and curiosity. And then, from there, you're going to just look for your next step. The next thing that's resonant for you. The next thing that feels like something empowering for you. The next thing that feels like, okay, this is what I'm really interested in, and this is helping me grow, and this is bringing me awareness I didn't have before, and this is a tool that's helping me feel better. And it's not going to change everything in your life. It's not going to solve all of your problems. When we can let go of looking for the tool that's going to fix everything, and we're just looking for progress, this skyrockets our progress. Okay? Because when we're looking for the thing that changes our life, we will never find it. We will never stick to anything long enough for it to help us, make us a little bit more complex, and then take us to our next step, which is how this process actually works. When we're looking for the thing, we will find a bunch of the things that were the thing. And we won't stick with it, and we won't see it, we won't see the benefit, because it won't change everything, it won't fix everything. And so we'll think that wasn't it, and we'll let it go. And then we'll jump to the next thing. And then we'll do that for a little while, and it doesn't fix our whole life, and then we let that go, and then we jump to the next thing, and then and we're just jumping around and jumping around and jumping around, and we never get anywhere. Because the reality was, all of those things you tried were correct. And all of them were just going to be a little bit. They were going to give you just that next thing. And it was going to inform you the next bit. And it was going to empower you the next little bit. Okay? And then you were going to keep that. Keep those habits. Keep that awareness. Keep that understanding. Keep that tool. And then you're going to add the next thing on top of it. And then you're going to work with that for a little while. And then you're going to find the next thing. And the next thing. And the next thing. And the next thing. And then, like I say, eventually you realize you've added all these tools to your toolbox. You've been feeling incrementally better all along this way. And now all of a sudden you're at this totally different place. And it wasn't any one of these tools that did it. It was all of them. It was all of them that you kept implementing and that you stuck with. So when we're no longer looking for the tool that fixes everything, we can finally see the next right tool for us. And we can implement it and we can appreciate it for what it gives us. Yeah? And then we don't become fanatical about anything. We don't become cultish about anything. We don't look for anything or anyone to be the answer. Right? We take what's great from whatever we're doing. We take what works. We leave the stuff that doesn't work. And then we look for the next thing that adds to that. We're not jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing anymore. We're adding to our toolbox. We're keeping stuff. And we're working with it until it becomes like second nature. Or until it's run its course. And then we're evolving to the next thing. Yeah? So like again, everything that I've done has been an evolution on itself. And some things, like I said, that I wanted to do with my diet 10 years ago, I couldn't have done. My body was not ready. Some things I wanted to do with my meditation practice, I was not ready. My nervous system was literally not capable of doing some of the techniques I wanted to do a year ago, or 3 years ago, or 10 years ago. And I can do them now. There were times and phases where I had to let go of trying to see the bigger picture, of trying to be grateful, of trying to be compassionate for everyone else, and just let myself be angry, and let myself be resentful, and let myself be blaming, and not see my caregivers as just people, but like really in my trauma, and validating myself, and owning that that was really shitty for me. Yeah? And that's what got me to the place of being able to have compassion and see the bigger picture and all of that stuff, because it helped me change my life enough that I'm no longer being injured by that stuff and all of these things. So like I say, the point is, the path is a path of steps. And the main third thing that I wanted to say, right, is that you are not going to have to wait until you have it all figured out before you're going to feel better. That is not reality. Okay, so again, the main reason I think everyone, well, the two main reasons everyone doesn't want to hear this message that I'm saying is, number one, we don't trust ourselves to be able to figure things out. We don't trust ourselves to be able to figure out what our next step is. We don't trust the next step to work. And we're in so much pain, we want something that's going to fix us right now. We don't feel like we have the patience to take incremental steps forward. And so I get it. I totally get that. We've never watched anyone else problem solve. We've never seen what incremental steps looks like for anyone else. We've never experienced it in our own lives. We don't believe that's a thing. And I get it, and I have nothing but compassion for that, because I've been there. I looked for the thing. I looked for the perfect thing. I know what that is like, because I was in so much pain. But what I want to promise you is that those highs that come from thinking we found the answer, right? Like that's a lot of the thing that we're like addicted to. And when I say addicted, I mean it serves to fill a need that isn't being filled by anything else. It doesn't fully work to give us what we actually want, but we don't have anything else that's better. And so we keep going to this thing over and over again. The reason we're addicted to looking for the quick fix, to looking for the 30-day thing, the thing that's going to fix us, the thing that's going to be the answer, is because we get that high in the beginning that this is going to change my life. And I've made a change, and I'm empowered, and I'm doing it right, and I'm right. It gives us that hope It gives us that feeling of I've changed something and I'm doing something different and this is going to be it this time. And like I say, the group energy that can come with that, and the approval of the guru, or feeling like we're doing it right because we're following a thing. And there's a high and there's a dopamine reaction for that. And a lot of these techniques and a lot of these things take advantage of our nervous systems, right? Like they're really intense exercise or really intense getting ourselves in all these hyper intense states, or sitting us so still and so navel gazy and telling us that everything is on the inside, and if we just fix ourselves enough, right? Micromanage yourself enough, your life will be perfect. And it triggers us. And we get addicted to that sensation. And then we fall off and we think of something we did or that the thing was wrong. And then we find the new high, the new plant medicine journey, the new session that changed our life, the revelation, all of this stuff. And we get addicted to that high. And we get addicted to the feeling that we're having a revelation. But I think most of us, right, we can go back through our Facebook posts, we can go back through our journals, we can go back through our conversations with our friends and realize we've had the same revelation like 8,000 times and nothing's really changed. Because the revelation isn't the thing. The awareness isn't the thing, the awakening isn't the thing, the nervous stimulation isn't the thing. The thing is the incremental steps. So it's boring. Like that's the main thing. Anyone who has become great, anyone who has mastered something, anyone who's had a true radical transformation where they are super different than how they used to be, did not live an Oscar highlight reel life. If you were to hang out with them most days, it's the same shit day in and day out. Their lives are pretty boring. Like boring to the outside. They just do their stuff. They go to the gym, they lift weights, they drink their smoothie. They go to their job. Yeah? And like I say, over the years, they become an Olympic weightlifter and it's amazing. And they have their Oscar moment, their Olympia moment, where they lift the weight over their head and it's wow. But the thing that got them there wasn't the thing that got them there was just their boring life that they did every day. It was just more of this now. They kind of had their thing, and like I say, they up-leveled and they learned something new and they had a new technique and it was exciting sometimes and all that stuff. But generally speaking, they just went to the gym, they ate good food, they hung out with their friends, and that's how they got there. It was boring. It was the same stuff over and over. And like I say, like you're gonna realize that you're gonna have all these insights about yourself, and you're gonna have all these insights about life. And like people always ask me, like, what did you read? Who did you listen to? How do you know all this stuff? Because I lived a boring life where I just kept observing and compiling information. My sister will attest to this to you. I'm not going on retreats. I'm not reading books. I'm not doing all this stuff. I'm not having a constant high. I have revelations incrementally because I do these practices. And then I can actually take my little, right? I don't have spirit journeys where my whole life is revealed to me and I see everything and blah, blah, blah on a regular basis. I have them sometimes. But generally, my insights are little, and then I work with it. I implement it. I practice it. It's boring. It's boring. It's boring. It's boring until it's part of my new life. And then I get the next insight. And then I get the next tool. And then I work it and 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 work it, and I milk it for everything that it's got. And it teaches me a whole bunch of stuff, and I become more complex. And then I get the next insight. And then I get the next tool. But to the outside, again, it would look just kind of boring. Like there wasn't a moment where I became this. I have been becoming this whole time. And the main thing is, it has felt better and 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 better the whole time. I didn't wait until I got here to feel good. I felt better 10 years ago. I felt better 15 years ago when I first started. Right, when I first had that revelation of I'm going to have to learn to love the person I am right now. Was that a before and after moment? Kinda. Right? Like it changed my life for sure. But again, if I had just had that revelation and then I hadn't now just practiced it over and over and over again every single day when I didn't want to, when the rut was to hate myself, the rut was to try to fix myself, the rut was to whatever, and to question it, and to do that work every single day, go to the gym every day and just lift the weights every day and have the same freaking smoothie every day, I wouldn't be here. And then, like I said, I let go of trying to become this perfect person. And then I realized that when I was on the right path, when I was just doing the next thing in front of me, I felt better than I'd ever felt. So like I said, I've said this a million times, right? You couldn't pay me to go back to where I was 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, I thought I was in heaven. I still had all these problems and I still had all this stuff going on, but I felt better than I had ever felt. I had already made more progress than I thought was ever going to be possible. And then all the stuff I've been through in the last 10 years, I didn't even see it coming. I didn't even know it was part of it. And if you had told me it had been part of it, I probably wouldn't have done it. But because I just did it one step at a time, one thing at a time, compassion and curiosity for myself, what am I learning right now? What's my next step? What can I get out of this? I felt good. Like I genuinely was feeling good. Feeling better than I had ever felt. That's the reality. Is that it felt good to just be making progress. And like I say, letting go of trying to get to this perfect place and really just showing up for myself and like, how do I support the person that I am right now? Felt good. And it will feel good for you too. So you don't have to wait until you're perfect before you're going to feel good. If you just start showing up for who and what you are right now with curiosity and compassion, and just taking the next step in front of you, and realizing if you can't do a step, if it's too much, if it's too overwhelming, if it's too intense, let it go. You don't have to. You're not ready, you're not ready. Be where you are. Do what's in front of you, and just do it over and over and over again. Let the mundanity of it all be your life. Chop wood, carry water. Do it over and over and over again. Add when it becomes appropriate. Right? You'll know when you're ready for the next step. And this is how you become a lifelong learner. This is how you become someone who has radically transformed over the years and who enjoyed the process of that. Because that's the main thing. Your life is always going to be a journey. You're never going to get it done. So if we're waiting for the after before we can feel good, you're going to wait forever. Because there is no after. There is just change that feels better and better and better and better. And just, this is your life now. This is your life now. This is your life now. And you can enjoy what is here and the growth that is possible here. And you will feel good with the growth that is possible here. When we're really in alignment, we do feel good with just taking the next step. The next step feels good. That's how we can determine what our next step is. It doesn't feel familiar. It doesn't feel comfortable. But there's something inside that's not stimulated, that's not triggered, that's not shocked into doing the next thing. But it's like, oh yeah, no, that feels great. That feels exciting. That feels challenging. But that feels doable. That's how it's going to feel. That feels realistic. That feels like a thing I can do. And I'm going to implement it, and I'm going to forget, and I'm going to fall off, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to work it until it becomes my new way of being. And then the next step after that will feel exciting. And then the next step after that will feel exciting. And like I say, when we're finally released of this, I need to find the thing, all of a sudden we start to see what our next steps are. Right? So when we're looking for the thing, we won't be able to see our next step. So if you're starting to feel really confused, it's either because you're trying to force yourself to do a step that isn't your next step, or you're looking for the big step, a huge step. You have an expectation of what the next step is supposed to look like, and it's much smaller than that. And it's much littler than that, and it's much more practical than that. And you got to back up a bit, and back up and back up and back up to where you are until you go, okay, that's something I can do. That's something that's realistic. And you have compassion for yourself. You don't say, well, if this is all I can do, I'm never going to get anywhere. If this is all I'm capable of, I'm stuck here forever. Maybe. But you can love you. The only way you're going to know what you're capable of is to love yourself how you are right now. To grieve whatever you've lost, to feel whatever you feel, to be upset with your caregivers, to be upset with the world instead of yourself, to learn how to stop blaming yourself for where you are, to really validate you, be seen in your pain. Sometimes we're not going to be ready to change until we've been seen in our pain enough. And we need to hear, it's not my fault, and this isn't, I don't have to change. And if I am this way forever, I'm going to blame my caregivers. And as much as that sounds immature and all that stuff, sometimes it's what we need. We don't want the spiritual perspective. We don't need the higher perspective. I'm going to talk about this in a whole other video, so there you go. But the main point is, again, if we stop looking for the thing that's going to change our whole lives, we will start seeing the next step in front of us. And if we just do that over and over and over again, surrender to the boringness of it, surrender to the repetition, surrender to just the little thing, the next little thing, the next little thing, the next little thing. Number one, it will feel good. You will feel good for the path, on the path. You will stop believing you need to be at the end before you'll feel good, and you'll start feeling good because you're doing your next step, and growth feels good. You will just feel good as you're doing your next growth step. And you will make steps, progress, 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 and you will go farther than you ever thought you were going to go. And you didn't have to push yourself, you didn't have to force yourself, you didn't have to manifest, you didn't have to deny anything that you were. You just validated who you were, compassion, curiosity, what's my next step? You made yourself safe. Yeah? You made yourself safe so that you could actually take your next step. I am good enough exactly how I am, even if I never change. Now, what do I feel like doing? And if it's nothing, do nothing. Keep validating. Eventually, you will make yourself safe enough, you will validate yourself enough that you will want to do something different. But if that's not today, that's not today. Let it go. You are good enough right now, even if you never change. And if that brings up for you, but then I'm in pain forever, sometimes you need to realize that you're not in pain because of you. And you need to be validated that you were hurt and that you're in pain because you learned things from others that weren't true, and it's not your fault. And you need to be seen and you need to be validated in that first. And then one day you'll be ready for change. Because right now it might feel like if you change, that means you were doing something wrong and bad right now. Because you're still blaming yourself for how you are right now. It's not your fault for how you are right now. The pain you're in isn't your fault. You learned it. It's a mess you have to clean up that you didn't make. And sometimes we just need to be validated in that before we're going to be ready to take any steps. Before we're going to be ready to forgive. Before we're going to be ready to have compassion. Before we're going to be ready to see the higher purpose. We just need to grieve and be sad and be angry and all of these things. So show up for the you that actually exists. Show up for what you actually need right now. Start to learn that growth feels good. It's incremental. It's one step at a time. And that will feel good. And it's kind of boring. And it's just little insights. And insights that are then worked. Because an insight that isn't practiced isn't anything. An insight that isn't practiced is a thing you're going to have an insight about 1,000,000 times and you're going to feel like a broken record. An insight that is practiced is a true insight that actually has an impact. Okay? Just knowing how to exercise doesn't make you stronger. You have to go to the gym, do the boring thing over and over. So the path is boring and also amazing, and it's not very good for capitalism, right? It's not your fault. Slow and steady wins the race. Every time. When you don't push yourself, and you just show up with curiosity and compassion, when your nervous system is ready, you take steps. When it's not, you validate. Over and over and over again. You will radically transform. You will feel good on the path. Okay? Okay. So that's that. Have a fabulous week. I'll see you next week. Take good care of yourself. Wherever you are right now, you are worthy of just showing up for who and what you are right now. You don't have to be anything else. To be on your path of growth, just show up for what you need and who you are right now. That is the path. Everything else will come from there, I promise. Okay? There's no one tool, there's a million tools. But just what's the next tool for you? That's the only thing that matters. Okay? Okay. That's that. You are perfect. You are loved. You're not alone. And I'll see you next week.